All right, we're about to turn up again here. Let me see if you can see me. We're about to turn up in here again. I was gonna go crazy, start singing this Pearl Jam song I just heard. I might give you guys a concert one of these days. Once I get up out of this library and I record in a different spot, or I just plot myself. I need to find a place in this grand city of. I shouldn't probably even reveal that, but of Southern California. Those who know. As I'm wearing this New York T-shirt, but what am I trying to say with this? I'm starting to think that I'm going to be a rock star in this life. Like, I don't know if it's directly like a music artist rock star or if it's just like having the opportunity to carry that energy as I'm working my career or my job, if you want to call it that. But I definitely feel like that's something that I need to experience. That's a torch I need to carry in this life. It just seems so fun. Like, and not only making music and being able to play it for people, but being able to have the audience like sing your music back to you. I'm pretty sure I'd cry if that happened to me. But that's one of the goals now. Not that it hasn't been. It really has been. I just had really horrible self-esteem and anxiety. But that may happen at some point in this life. It's one of my big goals is being able to rock a show with just full of great music with my buds who just make great music with me. Maybe we're a cover band and we just rock out the good songs. I don't know. Whatever it is, I might start doing. Maybe one of these days I'll start writing music and incorporating it to these, and then you guys can like really see the process. Or I'm just crazy and I'm just testing out the audio right now. So testing, 1, 2. Party people. He's, she's, they's, the gays. Everybody with a mind, heart, body, and a soul to receive these messages. I want to thank you for tapping back into another episode, maybe a lecture, in the Dark Wizard's Dungeon. It's you that makes shows like this possible on the newly censored YouTube platform. So thank you for contributing to not just getting this through the algorithm, but sharing this with your family and friends and everybody else who could use this information or find some value out of it. This isn't a different episode that we're doing today. This is actually, I've decided I'm going to start incorporating not only the things that I'm experiencing on my healing journey, but also some of the questions that I've been fortunate enough to receive from some amazing people in my community as they are starting to understand themselves from different perspectives. This one specifically, looking at oneself as, for lack of better terms, a crazy person, and really starting to understand that you maybe, not are, but you very well could possibly be an autistic person who wasn't fortunate enough to get a diagnosis at a young age to accommodate it, and or the way that society is structured, you aren't allowed to really accept that part of yourself, so you can keep on fighting to prove yourself in a world that's not going to accept you and won't accommodate you either. So this one specifically is a question that I just received. I don't know if I can reveal who gave it to me, but you know who you are, so thank you. The question was, in a very, very loose sense, it was initially asking how I figured out that I was autistic, or when did I really come to the conclusion that I was autistic. Of course, I gave that explanation and tried to not go so deep into how long it took me and how difficult it was to get to that conclusion and understanding, but how much of a blessing it was, or it is, to now be on the other side of accepting that and now being able to accommodate it. Because if I never accepted it and I kept on fighting it, I would keep on looking for solutions that mean nothing to really appreciate who I am. And I'd be looking for acceptance through the validation that I get based on my ability to perform as a human, rather than accepted and appreciated for who I really am. And acknowledge that I'm different and I have a different set of circumstances that I live by. And if you don't fuck with that, then that's totally cool. But it's hurting me more and more every day to act like I am not this person who needs this help, even as an adult. So as I kind of got into explaining, like, okay, this is how I figured out my situation, then our friend, because all of our friends of the dungeon are friends of those who are participating here, says, or gives me more of an explanation as to her circumstances and why she believes that she may find herself in the neurodivergent space, but isn't finding the right words to kind of place her in that confidently. Instead of answering her directly, which I apologize, I will get back to you before this video is even up, I've decided that I was going to make a whole video explaining my perspective as to why the current state of Western psychology is going to completely miss this new wave of autism, ADHD, and neurodivergent awakening, and not only miss this, but with our fast track into artificial intelligence and really digital psychosis at an exponential level, there's going to be so much trauma happening to the field of psychology that we might collectively just say, we're throwing the white flag up and everyone's going back to church because we don't know how to address all of this, which is the thing that I fear the most. Us as human beings completely giving up our responsibility. The first time we did it was, again, to religion, because we said we don't want to be responsible for understanding this experience and applying ourselves to make sure that we can do the best we can in it. So we're going to say that, well, God is looking over us, but the devil is everywhere, so I'm afraid of everything. And then the second thing is going to be AI. Now you can ask a machine anything and it'll always give you an answer, or it'll always validate you because you're basically paying for a service of this autonomous machine to validate you. And to assume that that's not going to do things super destructive, or at least perpetuate very destructive behaviors and actions in people's lives at an individual level, I don't think our current psychological mental health field is ready for that. And I also think that a lot of this mental health, caring about mental health information that's happening online, it's all trends. You guys don't give a fuck about mental health. You don't care about your friends who are going through mental health crises. You don't care about people who are going through mental health crises and need help. You don't care. You just say what you need to say to continue to protect this savior complex that you have inside of you, or this guilt of feeling bad for other people. It's not even empathy. You just feel bad for other people because you're like, damn, like I'm glad I'm not in that position, but not because, hey, they shouldn't be in that position either. That's what's wrong with a lot of you guys. When it's too much for you to save somebody, you say, you know what? It's just their fault that they're in that position, and it's not my responsibility to help them. Just because you can't save them and take responsibility for being their salvation, being their Jesus Christ, their Jehovah. And we're going to address a lot of that in this conversation that we're having today. So hopefully you guys got your popcorn or whatever the hell you like to eat on ready, because this is going to be good. And this is probably one of those cancel-worthy episodes. So understand, I'm not looking for validation out of this. I'm just hoping to throw something in the ether, and anybody who hooks onto it, hopefully you get what you need to out of it. All right? All right. Another reason why I decided that this is probably a very important public conversation to have is because the introduction of artificial intelligence in our reality, at the rate that we are integrating it, it's going to force us to truly question the value of what it means to be a human being. When all of were the only things, mind you, that human beings were appreciated for, other than the desired demographic class, were our ability to be exploited economically or sexually by the ruling class. Or intellectually, forgive me. Because, mind you, we have to think about a day and an age where women were not allowed to work. So physical exploitation through labor was, again, men exploiting men. And then the sexual exploitation was men exploiting women. And then the intellectual exploitation was men exploiting young children, whether it was through church or through educational systems, because they're trying to indoctrinate the next generation of themselves into the bodies of the youth, instead of allowing the youth to bring us into new cultures and new generations of humanity. It's a very, very great conversation we're going to have today. So hopefully you guys are ready. I'm excited. I'm stalling a little bit because I really want to figure out how I want to start this. But I think we should just get into it right now. So, If you'd like to support the channel, you can go ahead and check out our Patreon link. We'll be putting on earlier access and maybe some exclusive access videos on there. There is a course series that I was going to start selling, but I realized that I'm just going to allow that course series to be a week-by-week process that we go on together. And then those who want to participate at that level can also have access to. So go ahead and check out the Patreon. We're dropping new styles like nobody's business on Cosmic Nomads, Rebel Souls. I had to go a little hiatus on that. It may still be closed right now, but we're going absolutely insane-o, especially for the back end of 2025. Almost forgot what year it was. And then we're probably going to take another hiatus towards the end of the year so I can actually celebrate Christmas for the first time in like however many years it's been since then. Since my family thought that I was a worthless piece of shit and didn't deserve anything. Yeah. And I'm trying to think what else. How else am I going to try to take money out of your pocket that you probably don't have right now? If you think I'm cute and you want to... check out the Instagram. Other than that, let's see how many of you just a little psychotic BPD baddies we're going to end up turning into neurodivergent nuns by the end of this. Let's get into it. Okay. I've been doing a handful of studies into, I've been doing studies into a handful of topics. Forgive me for starting like that. I'm not editing this though. And a interesting conclusion that I've come to is not only is this world run by money, but our current iteration of reality is run by those who orchestrate the oil empires. Okay? Now, I won't be getting too deep into the specific historical facts or nature of a lot of these concepts because I want us to really make sure that we're focusing on the straight and narrow, which is understanding not only why the issue of BPD women and really just people with BPD being misdiagnosed with that instead of actually being treated and accommodated for autism if they may have that or any type of neurodivergence is because I already forgot what I was saying. Let me click this and then I'm gonna run right back. But also, in addition to why the misdiagnosis issue is really a thing, we're going to address how this current age of, for lack of a better term, psychological warfare on the digital front that is being sicked on us by big tech is going to have lasting mental health industry issues that you can't just solve by saying, get well soon, live, love, laugh. These like super cliche remarks that are trying to offer wellness and consoling to people who need healing. But a lot of you guys don't understand the depths of psychosis. It's not the world is the way that it is. Psychosis is I have decided to validate reality as it pertains to my internal state, and my internal state is completely disconnected from being grounded in this thing that we share called collective reality. And I will act in this collective reality upon the influence of my internal psychosis. To assume that that is something, an issue that can be treated by the individual and maintained and regulated by the individual and not a complete transformation of healthcare in the Western world, I guarantee you, bro, countries are going to be the ones that implode themselves not treating this stuff. There is not nearly amount of money that you can make out of AI that will compensate for all the damage that needs to take place to allow the powers that be to be to be free of obstruction to do as they please. Because really, it's just to suck all the money out of this era and then turn themselves into gods. That's it. Every single thing they say that AI is going to help with on a social front or a welfare front, we could do it. with the money that they're hiding, the money that they're not paying taxes for, the money that they're keeping in real estate and keeping in foreign banks. We could do all of this stuff, and we can do it very efficiently, so efficiently that we don't need big tech to buy out political elections to literally make them free of authority or free of accountability. But we don't, because we keep on buying the dream. We keep on just study STEM and become a software engineer and do this and do this and do this. And we keep on listening to the person who is giving us lies in exchange for our actual reality. And now that they have dominated actual material reality, the next reality they want to dominate is our psychological reality. They've already dominated the working world. All the powers that be have decided we're all pointing guns at each other, claiming the land that we stand on. Now, because there's no more real estate to steal from people who are already renting on land that is owned by somebody else, the next step is to go inside their brain and rewire how that even works so it can sustain the system that we've created and destroyed their world with. I'm excited to do this Peter Thiel's the Antichrist episode. But that'll happen on the podcast, not on here. And before I get, again, too crazy about this, all of this pertains to capitalism destroying healthcare. And then Christianity basically being used as the hand sanitizer for the trauma of capitalism to allow poor people to continue to elect and validate rich people in absolutely ransacking our society. Until we end up like the Romans, because that's how all these rich societies end up. You end up take from the poor. Oh, we think that we earned this and it's coming from God, but we're taking from down here. And we forget that we're taking so much from our foundation, it's going to collapse. Because you take the foundation out and you hoard it at the top, and then you tell the people at the bottom that God gave, like,
oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Let's go ahead and run down initially, the individualization. No. We shouldn't start there. We should start as to the oil theory that I was giving first, and how a majority of healthcare, especially in the Western world, is owned by these oil oligarchs. That was the first big tech dystopia, the oil oligarchs. But we didn't have TikTok and YouTube and mainstream television to be able to see these people destroying society, making billions upon billions, exploiting people, blowing up, inflating prices for no reason, monopolizing everything in their path. Handful of fortunes got blown up within 2 or 3 generations of the initial founder. Interesting, very interesting. I'm not sure how many of you guys are familiar on John D. Rockefeller's influence on healthcare, because he decided that he wasn't done making his millions in this oil, vertical stacking, this oil empire. He wanted to make even more millions, if not some billions, owning American healthcare, owning systems. And this is where I think it's demonic as f. An already rich person decides to ruin systems that are already self-sufficient and serve the people, the prioritized to serve the people. This guy says, I want to replace that system in very experimental sense, but not only experimental in the sense that I'm doing trials on human beings, but experimental is I'm manufacturing a class of slaves for myself to sustain my systems even after I die. So I can continue to profit, and anybody who submits to a lifestyle or economic systems like mine can also profit with that same level of sociopathy. All right? I mean, it's smart if you're thinking about, well, I'm not really talented or creative or worthy of anything nice, so I'm going to go take what people rely on, healthcare, and I'm going to find a way to privatize it and then profit off of it. Because that's infinite money glitch right there. I mean, it's like owning water. Like, yeah, people need water. Human beings are 70% water. Of course, we need that to drink. And now you own water, but you don't even own the water. You just own the purification process and the plastic bottles that it come in. This world is so f***ed up. I'm sorry. This might be just a throwaway episode. But it's just so crazy how this world works. And I don't know if it's like purely Christianity or if it's just like the capitalist indoctrination that makes you stop from seeing like poor people vote rich people or affiliates of rich people to give rich people money and then to validate it through legislation. And then poor people go back into the streets and complain every single year. And then we go and vote for another affiliate of rich people to go. Without getting too deep into, which we already probably did, the oil empire and how it's impacted Western medicine, replacing or stopping the allowance of holistic medications, of plant medicines, of that which can't be profited off of because you don't get to own the growth process. You don't get to own the production process. You don't get to actually own the labs that you can use to produce these types of medications. Because medication in indigenous time, medication in pre-colonial eras were plants, the food that you ate, the sleep that you got, the community that you had access to, the spiritual practice that you did. It was all these things that you took responsibility for if you cared enough about them or if your culture supported that. But it wasn't because, well, you don't have enough money to pay for these services. You don't deserve it. And mind you, did we tell you that we just came out with this drug for this disease that we made up 10 years ago? Or forget me, let me say that again. Did you know that we just came out with this drug last year to treat a disease that we just came out with 20 years ago, which only had research for like 2 years? And the person that was researching it, or the person that the disease is named after, is actually a eugenicist, and they don't understand that Western medication and a lot of Western psychological theory is rooted in eugenics? Think about how fundamentally flawed your perspective will be when you're assuming the person that you're testing on is like some superior monkey instead of a complex human, possibly even more complex than you type human being that you don't have the capacity to understand because you're looking with such shame and hatred and ignorance. So I think all of Western psychology is. That's why I even wrote No Land for Good Men, or even made that lecture series, No Land for Good Men, because I think all of Western psychology is absolute. And the whole entire healthcare industry, I mean, as great as it is to this point, like it's doing what it can, but for so much less money invested in, you can get so much more of a great return. But it's because these people want the profit that comes from having addicted consumers to medicinal products and medicinal services rather than healthy people who can contribute to society by, I don't know, contributing to the economy, I don't know, contributing to community engagement, I don't know, being healthy and alive and doing something with that. Like, this country hates you. You might see me as like some crazy black dude screaming at you through the screen, but
this country hates you.
Bro, all of you have to afford respect in this country. And most people can't even afford the right to live. The way that we're going to perpetuate making millions upon millions generationally off of experimental drugs, off of fake that we're peddling, that we don't even know works, knowing that we've just cut society off from generations of culturally understood medicines and healing practices. But we will let some random group of like MLM scheming white women end up picking this practice up years later, bastardizing it, and then selling it on Etsy and becoming millionaires off that as well. So it's weird how all of these things, like capitalism, is just the gift that keeps on, it doesn't even give, it just keeps on eating until there's nothing else to eat, and then it eats itself. The point, or how you perpetuate this type of system and this type of capitalist, really pit of gold. It's like when you can find a way to exploit an essential system, you basically found a way to forever be paid. Especially if you can get it supported by the law. The point is to identify diagnoses or identify illnesses, not for the sake of actually treating them and getting the person back to health, because we don't care about that. The point is to identify so we can control it by medicating it, and we can constrict it to make sure that only two options you have. Grow codependent onto the medication because you don't find any holistic or internal healing accommodations or practices to support you off of that medication, which is what they want. Addicts. They don't understand even what you're going through. They just need the consumer. And also to make sure that those of us, again, this is going to be a personal theory and I'll take full responsibility if I'm wrong, those of us who are neurodivergent and we're gifted, but we are marginalized and we're not supposed to be gifted because we have to perpetuate the crazy, the radical, the psychotic mental health patient. They take away our accommodations, and they also validate taking away our accommodations because we happen to be these marginalized identities, so they can invalidate any truth that we happen to see, observe, or experience that will shut down the system or force people to see that the system feeds off of people to support itself at the mercy of a system being built by the people, for the people, and then regulated by people who don't use broken systems to make personal gain. Okay? And then instead of jailing people who don't have mental health accommodations, jailing people who need therapy, jailing people who need community, jailing people who need support, we jail the people who leverage these broken systems to exploit vulnerable people already and then criminalize those vulnerable people for the sake of doing probably even more sick and heinous things underground or behind the scenes. This is one planet that we're living on, and it's all connected. And I hope that through these videos, you're really starting to see how connected it really can be. And the only thing that perpetuates this suffering that we're going through is not only the severe division, but somebody and some group of people is winning off of that division and off of the exploitation of that division. And if we can't figure out who's doing that, bro, if we can't rip the face off of the Wizard of Oz and really see it's just some behind there, we might be forever, bro. We're going to be blaming each other, blaming our neighbors, blaming the ground, blaming the sky, blaming the girl that broke our heart every single day until we die, bro. I wanted to, let me make sure this is still recording. Oh, perfect. Oh, perfect. I wanted to make sure that I included that human testing with experimental medications, I already said this, the abandoning generations of holistic health intelligence by indigenous people. But I had to include the human testing part because I don't think you guys are very familiar with, at least mainstream society isn't familiar with, after the Nuremberg trials, I was supposed to punish the Nazi soldiers and not soldiers, but officials and the executives of that whole Nazi Germany brigade. There was actually the leader of the CIA, whoop-de-doo, was actually good friends with a handful of Nazis and was a Nazi sympathizer. This is the head of the American CIA. Immediately following World War II is a Nazi sympathizer. That's weird. All right? Wouldn't it be interesting if the person, Alan Dulles, I think, who said, why would we waste this talent in prison when we can use this for America and our own personal gain? It would be kind of interesting if those scientists that we recruited directly out of the SS, Nazi Germany. I want to keep on saying that because it's important. Recruited and immigrated. I know you guys, you Americans love that word. Immigration, Nazis, immigrated Nazis because the head of the CIA thought that they were too intelligent to be squandered by facing accountability for what the they did. That's weird. It's just so weird to me. It's almost like the people who are generationally, globally known for doing some of the most disgusting human experiments and human trials and abuse of humans, war crimes. It's interesting to me that they're the ones that get recruited to come into our country. And maybe not, allegedly, entertainment purposes only, maybe They have something to do with the direction our science field took to experiment on Americans with petroleum medications rather than continuing to put ourselves in a position to understand the holistic nature that we live on, which is our planet Earth, and how to integrate a healthcare system that actually aligns itself with that. Because one thing about you guys on that universal healthcare, it's never going to happen because the healthcare system is built for profit. Universal healthcare says it's for the people, but a profit-based system that serves the people, it'll never happen. It'll just go broke. You're supposed to recognize how much of healthcare is actually something that can't be bought. It's something that people have to take responsibility for, whether it's caring for the environment, whether it's caring for yourself, whether it's showing up to the world. There's things that you have to do, intangibles that happen that are a part of healthcare that you can't say, well, this is that, put a price tag on it. All right? All right, let's get into the individualization of American industries. So instead of actually prioritizing the healing that I'm speaking about, we can prioritize ownership, profit, and the division of people who need that healing. So the bottom half of America ends up being a crabs in the bucket nightmare of traumatized people, drug addicted people, people who are like need severe help. Mind you, people who end up are disabled and need accommodations but just are being refused to have access to it. And then we all, again, fight each other in our bastardized humanity, leaving us to blame it on the devil. And, oh, look how crazy these people are, the devil, the devil, the devil. And then everyone goes back to church instead of thinking, look at all of these people who need help and they're not getting it. And us depriving people of this help longer and longer and longer, but then allowing us to perpetuate agendas and propaganda that says your neighbor, you're this person who's black, this person who's gay, this person who's a woman, this person who's a dog is the reason why you're broke and you smoke meth. Like, no, it's not them. And the longer you're thinking that it's their fault and it's them, the further away you're growing from being able to reach that place of accountability to be able to take control of the things you can control and then put yourself in a position to be helped in the ways that you can't help yourself. Let's break it down. Health science is dominated by capitalism. Instead of being able to have a for the people at the mercy of profit system, which would be mainly holistic, we decided that we want as many people to get sick, ill, hurt, traumatized as they can, because that gives us customers to market our products to. America is one of 2 countries that allows medical ads on public broadcast. 2. The other one's New Zealand. When have you ever heard New Zealand doing it? I'm kidding. But capitalism dominates our field of health science and tells us that the people are meant to serve profit motives. The people are meant to serve the powerful and the machines that the powerful own, because those machines have been broken to make more profit for the powerful instead of serve the plight of the people. All right? So we don't have any real type of health science. That means we couldn't even understand autism, ADHD, neurodivergence in any other way than you are broken and you can't serve capitalism. You are wrong and you can't serve our broken system that is intentionally destroying lives and destroying communities and stopping you from being able to have access to a life, or at least regulation that would allow you to not feel insane. So fix yourself. And if we can't fix you with our medication, our experimental medication, which is difficult because I know a handful of neurodivergent people that are on like 8, 9, 10 different drugs, but the world will call me a drug addict because I like to smoke weed every day. But like, you're on literally 9 drugs that you can't even pronounce the fucking name of. And you take them every single day just to feel normal. And all I do is smoke weed. Like, really start to question the world that you live in. And I'm the addict, right? I'm the crazy one. I'm telling you, bro, you guys don't understand. You guys are literal, like, if you saw yourself as trial subjects instead of patients that are getting accommodation, then you'd be like, holy if they just dead this drug that I've been using for the past 10 years because it doesn't work as effective as this new one, it's next one. Spiritual science. Nobody's allowed to have any type of spirituality because anybody who worships anything other than blonde Jesus is worshiping the devil. And if you don't worship anything at all, you have to be worshiping the devil because you have to be worshiping something at the same level that these Christians are worshiping out of fear their God. Okay? It's like this crazy projection. That's what I've realized. As I've grown more into my spiritual journey, I've realized my spirituality is about self-acceptance. It's about being able to appreciate myself, being able to acknowledge that I'm different, that I may be lazy some days, I may be angry some days, I may be depressed, I may be happy, but it's all about the journey of growing into accepting this complexity and this chaos. Yeah, a lot of Christianity, at least traditional Christianity, as I'm speaking about a Christian nationalist nation, it's about conformity. It's about being able to sacrifice your own inner knowing for the sake of believing something externally, which is insane because as a creative artist and a dream chaser myself, it's the completely opposite. You're the person who believes something internally and then you bring it out into the world, and through your actions, your behaviors, your habits, your routines, what you pursue, that's when you start making that inner belief a reality, or at least testing those inner beliefs with reality so you can figure out what is true and what is not true. So weird. Reduce the amount of people who are creative and trusting their internal self, then you have more people that are willing to be manipulated, seeking salvation that they can't give themselves as well. All right? Your religion is something that I could get on. I mean, I love a lot of the Christian people, man, and I love a lot of the doctrine that you guys follow. I mean, if you do follow it, be kind to thy neighbor, no adultery, no this, no. Actually, forget that. I do be liking to have sex. I do be having sex. So, let me skip on that one. All like the negative stuff, like it's actually hurting people. I think that's righteous. I think that's very righteous. But it's based in fear. Again, existential fear. Rejection of the self, existential fear, and then with that existential fear that is burning through your soul and your ability to accept yourself, you put your whole booty on Front Street, hoping that somebody is going to pass by and see, I like that. I'm going to accept you because that booty is amazing. Like not even because of you being who you are. Even before you get to the acceptance, you're performing. That's the thing that hurts me the most. Because I don't need 1 million people to love me, bro. I don't need to be a part of like the most famous person on planet Earth. What I need to be is myself. And hopefully out in the world enough to find people who genuinely appreciate that. And give me enough space to grow on that journey, becoming whatever the I am. Because how are we supposed to know who we are before we got here? In a sense that we already knew we were going to be Christians and submitting to this stuff. We're supposed to figure it out along the way. And if we can't make mistakes, then we're afraid of ourselves, bro. We don't trust our own ability to really catch ourselves and to get back on path. That's just one thing I want to make sure that I'm really, really hounding on. It's not only the fear-based suicide salvation cult nature of it that's an issue. Like, where everyone's waiting for Jesus to come back so we can all die together. Like, that's also some crazy. It's reject what's going on inside of me. Reject my own beliefs, my own desires, my own dreams. Reject, and then be in such a compromised position internally that I am completely at the mercy of whatever feels good externally. Even if I, having my discernment, cannot trust that. Or that doesn't apply to me. Very weird, very weird. And I also don't like that complete rejection of the self because I think that allows people in positions of power to manipulate not only vulnerable people, but children. And everybody knows the issue that the church has with protecting children. As much as they say that everything that they do is for the sake of saving and like being righteous by and loving children, like, no, look at your executives, look at your officials that have no accountability, literally giving out tithings to give out child settlement cases. It's like us paying taxes for all of our money to get sent over to the police just so the police can have more money to spend on settlements instead of actually solving crime, which may be reducing their numbers and focusing on being actually or doing their job instead of just exploiting their position of power. Next, let's make sure this is still recording. Oh yeah, we're chilling. Next, social science, psychological science. I put those two together because I believe that the psychological science is the internal structures that you live your life by, that your mind operates within. And then the sociological structures are the structures that we exist in collectively in this shared reality of collective perspective. You guys know how much I speak about patriarchy. Beautiful ladies, everyone, come to the front. Come to the front. You know how much I talk shit on patriarchy. And you don't have to hate men to talk down on patriarchy. It's interesting. The more human beings you respect and you have empathy for and care for outside of just men, especially a specific demographic of them, you recognize how these types of systems don't serve anybody. Really, it almost seems like we're trying to claim as many women as we can so we can impregnate as many of them with as many children as we can and then indoctrinate those children on Sundays and then maybe 2 or 3 more times during the week through church and then 5 times a week through school and then reinforce those behaviors or that submissiveness through whatever career they choose. So forever, unless you happen to be the man, fortunately, you're at the mercy of your boss, you're at the mercy of your God, you're at the mercy of the patriarch of your family. Which, if you're a woman, you'll never be. Like, what? Oh, and then mind you, let's not add the racial superiority aspect of the society that we live in. I might have just, actually, I'm starting to realize I might have just explained every single thing that I was going to say about that in that 1 second. But just to reiterate one more time, doesn't it make sense? Like, especially the whole like nuclear family experiment. We're trying to claim that the only time you've seen the only 2 major women's communities that have been allowed to be popular on like a mainstream level, nuns, like nunneries, if they want, what do they call those? Nunneries or like nurseries? And Playboy Mansion. The exact definition of the like Madonna whore complex, which stops us from seeing women as multi-complex beings, but only allows us to see them as, okay, that's either a child who's going to become a wife, or that's a child who, again, got exploited, but we're not going to acknowledge that, and is now a, for lack of better terms, whore, which we are going to allow the exploitation of because we don't think that this whore deserves the respect of a woman or a wife. And then we have women competing against each other to be picked by men, hoping that men perceive them and treat them in the way of a wife rather than said whore. Completely abandoning the understanding of the innate sexual desire of a human being and the innate ability that human beings have to commit to responsibilities if they actually care about them. You guys may hate to admit this, but somebody could have had a very, very experimental past and decide that is not the life they want to live and commit to being this a wife or a husband or a father or a mother. But you guys hate, you guys don't want to see, you guys see like women get like one blemish and you guys want to act like they're just like devil spawns and just destroying society. So I can't have conversations with you guys who don't see women as like complex beings who can decide what they want to be and have access to whatever identity they want. All right? That's why we speak so against patriarchy. Because a lot of, and this might even go for the women in my community, the greatest form of connection that you may find could not come from a man. Like it may possibly not come from a man or come from a traditional marriage heteronormative relationship. It could come from a community of girls that you do things with collectively, but you're all living independent lives. And when you come together, you feel the love of a village. You feel the love of intimacy. Maybe not sexually, but you feel the love of intimacy. You feel the love of emotional intelligence and care and respect. And you don't have to sacrifice that to hope that a man chooses you and then makes true on all those promises that were used to woo you over. Because more times than not, and as a dude myself, more times than not, we're speaking with our dicks until we get to use it. And then we start thinking with our brains. And then we realize that we f***ed up. I think what our current leaders think is the solution to this issue is taking the rights out of anybody who's not a dude in society, and then again leveraging the hidden racism of America to then invalidate the rights of any man who is not picked by or born as a white man in our society. Don't think I was going to forget this cult individualism thing. I just had to make sure that we're getting into the patriarchy stuff because that leads to the prioritization of family-based communities for the sake of having a bunch of children to exploit and families to perpetuate that exploitation rather than different types of communities, different types of relationships that could support society because not everybody is trying to be heteronormative or everybody's trying to be monogamous in a world where there are infinite types of relationship and connection that can be had. And maybe if you allow people to find what types of connections work for them, they can expand the energy that comes from healthy connections to create a healthy community. Because if a bunch of people don't like themselves on the inside and they don't have connection to anybody, you're not just going to throw them in a room and expect them to respect each other, much less respect the environment for what it's intended for. And I also think social media turned a lot of people, and COVID, us being forced online during those COVID lockdowns, it transitioned a lot of our social culture into people who exist online thinking that anytime they go into the world saying something, they just have fans. Like, I don't want to go into the world and be a part of a group of people, be a part of a community and wait my turn to speak, wait my turn to enjoy the thrill, or just enjoy with others. I want to be the center of attention. I want to be the leader. I want to be the person doing this. I don't want to be the person who's not on top all the time. I'm sorry. And we're trying to basically serve ourselves like we are individual accounts in the real world that need to serve the validation of this account that we're building rather than human beings who live in the real world and take account of our real world life and share it on the internet freely just because we want to. Or maybe because we're getting something out of it. But we've prioritized the validation, the immediate validation that comes from social media and literally transformed our real world into a reflection of the digital world because it allows people more freedom than what people have access to in the real world, and then making digital universes on the back end of that we can enjoy but not, be enslaved to. Final thing, which will kind of wrap our whole entire individualization of industry theory up here, is earth sciences. We've completely lost appreciation not only for the earth that we live on, but for the people that live on it, the people that have taken responsibility for it, the cultures that actually reinforce the responsibility on this earth. We're so far gone in, I don't even want to call it the colonizer's fantasy, but really just the capitalist fantasy. And again, I'm a capitalist at heart myself, but this is a different type of that we're going through. This is like warfare capitalism that we're going through. And when you have people that are allegedly, because these guys are billionaires, I might get fried for this. When you have dudes who are cooked on like hallucinogens and psychedelics and narcotics of all kinds. I'm not judging any psychedelic users or people who take mind-altering substances. But when your brain is fried on ketamine, you might be doing a handful of other illicit substances. And the public knows this now. Peter Thiel, look me eye to eye, bro. You were sweating in an air-conditioned penthouse room. You know the only people who sweat in the cold, other than very anxious people, mind you, it'd be interesting if you're still anxious as a billionaire. You were, like, for anybody who knows what withdrawals are like, for anybody who knows drug addicts, for anybody who knows anything about addiction, please look at the New York Times interview that Peter Thiel did. The one that calls him the Antichrist. The way that he's interacting, it looks like there's a freaking sun right in the corner of the room, burning this dude to shreds. But again, not too many accusations, a lot more education here. With our absolutely brain-cooked, dead, rotted billionaires who think that not only they're gods, but they think that they're all from like Lord of the Rings or some kind of sci-fi movie and they're coming to save us from themselves, but they don't see that as themselves. They see themselves as the hero. And their villains are just poor people. Poor people who don't even know that we're the villains. It's just like, oh, we happen to be collateral damage for this like really heinous decision that got made to make a little bit more money for somebody who has so much money they can't even fit it all in one bank, so they have to fit it in a bunch of offshore banks and not pay taxes on them. The earth science and environmental science, truly abandonment of our society, I think has a little bit to do with a lot of people were like super climate activists in like early 2000s, even like 2008, really, with like Obama and all that shit. And then we completely fell off the board because America was cool again. And we also weren't in a failing economy because of big tech. And these young 20-year-old bastards almost saved America. So now we have to basically do whatever they want. And what they want is they want to be racist again. They want to be accepted by their jock peers that beat the shit out of them in high school. And they want to be liked by the girls who rejected them for those jock peers that beat the shit out of them in high school. And it's also scary because a lot of those grown adult big tech nerds still want high school girls. So, I believe there's good intention behind fighting for climate change and climate activism. I don't believe activism does anything under capitalism, though, because you're just going to get starved out because you're not going to have money to pay your bills as contributing volunteers to a nonprofit that is not used to launder money. So capitalism will just wait you out, and then you're going to end up getting a job, and then you're going to focus on something else, and the capitalists will keep making their money until the next generation of kids wants to be climate activists. I believe that the only reason why we're denying climate change is because this whole oil oligarchy is so deeply rooted in this era. I don't know how many years, maybe like 100 years. This era of global economy. I genuinely believe if we removed that oil oligarchy, mind you, or we started to say, you know what? Let's spend the whole world on free energy. you would destroy like 30 or 40% of the global economy. And again, I'm guessing here, but such a significant chunk of the global economy would be destroyed if we pivoted from our addiction to gas and burning fossil fuels and ruining the environment, ruining the earth, ruining the atmosphere, ruining people's health, all these negative things that happen to make, again, a handful of nations hundreds of billions of dollars every year, to keep fortunes where so much of this money that is being extracted over the top of our heads, we don't even, like, if they put numbers on everything, you would see that the system, the money that we're exchanging is absolutely fucking nothing. The only reason why we deny climate change is because big tech needs to destroy the environment for the sake of perpetuating their wealth schemes. Because they're no better than the finance bros who take a bunch of taxpayer money or government funds to go it up on the stock market, and then they lose it all, and then they end up having no money to pay their investors back, and then we have an economic crash. Oh my goodness. Except these tech guys have created consumer systems that they can addict us to while they destroy our reality. And then they can also destroy the inside of our brains while we use them as well. And then we can, well, what would we do without Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok? What would we do without, what would we do without ChatGPT? Watch what happens when an entire country worth of something gets burned, destroyed, like just burned. Or we start to say, you know what? Those people don't deserve fresh water. We're going to put a data center right there, right next to that freshwater lake, and just ruin the whole thing. And oh, that's one less lake people have to get fresh water out of. Oh, that's one less environmental space that is protected by the sanctity of humanity and is at the mercy of extracting wealth to be owned by somebody else now. It's all connected, is it? Health science, spiritual science, social science, earth science. It's all connected, bro. And I'm not even somebody who pursued the sciences. I'm just autistic. One second here. Perfect. Okay. Important part about this aspect of it all, just the pure destruction of the world by these psychopathic billionaires and oligarchs. Western medication is a consequence of the petroleum industry and how there's just so much excess of the oil that we end up burning anyway that it's used in, think about just petroleum jelly being used as moisturizer. Petroleum itself is in so much, almost like baking soda, so much of our society. It shows how we as a society are addicted to oil by creating so many other uses for this excess filth that we're generating off of a system and a machine that does not need to exist. Because what's weird about, like, when you eat when you eat the plant that was grown out of the ground, you can take the rest of that plant and throw it back onto the ground, and it'll get absorbed into that ground. Of course, it'll take time, but the nutrients that are still there will get absorbed back into the ground. And the seed can grow in that ground again. And you can eat an apple, put a seed into the ground, and at some point, it may take a long time and a lot of responsibility, you can eat that second apple that is born from that tree that comes from the apple that you just ate. And you can keep doing that, as long as you have access to or you own the space where that apple is being grown again and again and again. But when you don't have a lab to cook your corporate crack in, the only person who's allowed to do it is the federal government, and who the federal government decides is allowed to cook corporate crack for you to get addicted onto. And then you also have to have health coverage to access the corporate crack, but you need the corporate crack. So if you don't have access to the corporate crack through health coverage, you might start taking street crack. Again, I'm not actually speaking about crack. I'm just speaking about medication, but I'm using some extreme words. I apologize for that. But think about think about American or like Western healthcare as just the greatest drug dealing economy and empire probably on planet Earth. Legalized drug dealing, experimental economy on planet Earth. Western meds fix you to serve capitalist machine until broken machine kills us all and the masters run off with whatever loot they were able to make from the broken system instead of investing that loot into fixing the system. Because the only way to make money off this system is breaking it and being on the right side of it, not by fixing it and actually giving people fucking healthcare. Now that we've gotten into the whole entire destruction of Western healthcare and psychology, let's see how we in the dungeon personally address this misdiagnosis mayhem. All right. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys to like stop going to your doctor and getting healthcare and all that. Leverage, again, these are professionals at the end of the day. I'm not saying they're stupid because they might have studied the wrong thing here or there, or they might give you a shitty accommodation. But these people are professionals in a very, very intellectual field. And regardless of how much I hate Rockefeller, regardless of how much I despise the treatment over time rather than actual healing, I believe that the greatest conclusions that we can come to will come from those of us who experiment with real world holistic practices and accommodations and ritual, and those of us who can merge those with the already deeply developed understanding of this traditional medical system, and then taking those and making something new with it that has an actual intention of healing people, allowing people to take responsibility for their own healing, and we have a more proactive healing society rather than reactive treatment society. The holistic approach to understanding neurodivergence, in my eyes, and I think a great foundation that we can take in the psychological field, if you are somebody who gives a fuck about patients who have neurodivergence, are understanding by allowing it to exist. Mind you, a lot of the issue that we have with neurodivergence, whether it's not just neurodivergence, but just being marginalized in a society that doesn't really understand you in a way that's not stereotypical, is, oh, forgive me, I almost forgot what I was going to say, is that we aren't allowed to simply be. And the difference is when you're allowed to be, you're expressing yourself authentically. But when you are performing for the acceptance before you actually start being, we are never truly certain if you are ever being. But an interesting or a really sad aspect of it is that when you perform so much that you do get accepted for that performance, you may leak out your real being accidentally and then get rejected for that. When you think that you are being accepted for who you really are, but it's not. You're being accepted because you're performing as somebody who is worthy of acceptance, at the mercy of being able to have help and connection on the other end of not being that acceptable person, which is who you really are. Because we can't be perfect for everybody at all times, because we are being ourselves and they are receiving us as we are. So the only way I believe that you can understand, put it on quotes, neurodivergence and understand these types of differences in our humanity are by allowing the existence of it first. All right? Again, we don't, a lot of us, and especially marginalized people, we aren't in positions to where we can really appreciate this level of understanding because we aren't allowed to exist. We already have a I don't have kids to take care of, but there's family responsibilities, there's financial responsibilities, there's career responsibilities, there's relationship and network responsibilities. There's so many responsibilities already, especially if you're poor, if you're marginalized, if you're somebody who's been on the wrong side of the law. There's so much already that you're trying to prove for acceptance for in your own humanity. Every accommodation that you seek out of that performance mindset is to support hoping to get validated, hoping to get the validation that is supposed to compensate the acceptance that you could give yourself if you had an opportunity to exist, because then you could say, maybe I'm a fan of routines, or I like this specific thing a specific way, or I'm not a fan of this, is because I am this person. I am autistic. I am ADHD. And I don't have to hate myself because I do this way. I just need to reconfigure my energy, change out how I'm living my life specifically to me to accommodate these differences so I can contribute to the world outside of myself. Instead of there's something wrong all the time, and then it's me constantly cutting off the hedges of myself until there's nothing left of me because I've cut everything off, thinking that I had to keep shrinking myself to be accepted. And then there is nothing left at the end of the day. It's weird because it's weird. You'll sit here and see when you want mental health support, if you don't you can be on medication. People aren't going to accept you just because you're taking medication for your shit now. It's so weird to me. If you need mental health help, people don't really help you. They just say get well soon, and then you take medication. It's supposed to help you, but it doesn't help you. And then now it's oh, that's the crazy person. We don't know what to do with you now. Again, everything is a personal opinion here. Take it all with a grain of salt and a cup of wine and a long, long joint. But we're not just understanding. We're not just allowing ourselves to sit there with our balls hanging out and not really doing shit. This has to be a journey of curiosity, understanding the self. Understanding is allowing the self to make mistakes, allowing the self to be lazy, allowing the self to grow and to fall, but knowing that the relationship that you have with the self is forever and you're going to be there. Gives you these opportunities on the back end of that understanding. You can acknowledge aspects of yourself that you weren't familiar with, that you didn't know, that you didn't have the time or the space to acknowledge. And now they're there. And now you don't have to be confronted by whether it's childhood trauma or confronted with emotional dysregulation. Now you can receive it and understand how you're going to go about addressing it. Very different than being on the back end of life beating your ass all day. It allows us an opportunity. Understanding allows us an opportunity to accept our differences and express ourselves in alignment with who we are, rather than perform for the acceptance that we hope other people can give us that will compensate us for the acceptance that we can't give ourselves. Next, understanding through the lens of that acceptance allows us to actualize ourselves for who we really are, and then finding people along the way as we are looking for help, we're looking for assistance, accommodation to support ourselves on that journey. And through that actualizing our truth, who we are. Again, mind you, you might get hated as if you're in the wrong community with this. I was a black sheep. My family was hating on me, and I stepped outside that and I'm wait a second. These people are with me, and I'm just being me. So remember, could be an environmental thing. It may not be you're not supposed to. But on the other side of actualizing who we are supposed to be and who we feel called to be on the inside, that's when the world gets to appreciate us. Whether it's the universe appreciating us by granting us opportunities to keep going on this path, or it's peers granting us appreciation for being ourselves, or it's people who are inspired by the path we're taking, people who are angered by the path we're taking. But you have to realize appreciation may not be in the light that you think it as somebody praising or worshiping you for doing what you do. Appreciation might just be other people acknowledging what you have already internally acknowledged, accepted, and are now choosing to share with the world. And that could be the appreciation that you've been looking for and may have not been able to receive properly or to really understand because you don't know, like you're fighting for the incorrect kind of acceptance or validation, something that's never going to really fulfill you. Oh yeah, this is why like so much of that's what I've realized healing, especially for us as neurodivergent, it's not I'm a China pot and I just got broken down and now I need to put myself back together again. The point of this is, actually, I might have actually said what I was trying to but the point is not to look from a perspective of I'm broken and I'm building myself to be that China pot that I was before I got broken. The point is I'm broken as a China pot, but as I put myself together again, I get to see myself in much more intimate aspects of myself. I get to build myself together again. I get to really, really connect with the individualized aspects of myself as I'm putting myself together. And I get to appreciate the newfound beauty that's on the other side of being broken, already been broken, but now there's new beauty. Because I am somebody with the battle scars now. I am somebody who has survived. I am still on the other side. And I think that's something that a lot of people are afraid of. They're afraid of even being broken for the first time because they don't know if they really have it in them or they even have the support or the acknowledgement of others to get to that point where they can rebuild and really find the love of the process of putting that back together and even building beyond that versus just staying inside the box or staying inside the circle and just doing enough to maintain the perfection of the fresh out the container China pot. This understanding, let me make sure this is a recording. Dude, I'm gonna you wait until I get an editor, okay? Wait until I get an editor or like somebody who's actually recording and then it'll be a lot cooler, but or maybe it, like this is just who I am. People first systems are held together by collective responsibility so CEOs don't get I thought that said shit, I'm sorry. Don't get corrupted by power over others. That's the only direction I feel like we're going. And that's why I feel like AI actually has an opportunity to do some positive work if it is used effectively for really fixing systems that were broken by this greedy institutional capitalism that we used to play the game of. Now, I believe that it's going to be people and all their, people, their problems, they put their problems through a funnel. That funnel has solutions on the other side of it. Not that it serves those solutions, but it just has an understanding of possible solutions. And through this machine of problems and solutions and regulated by people, we can figure out how to create an automated system to get people as close to maintaining and taking responsibility for their own health as we can in the ways that they can, and then allow that type of data and that type of information that is transacted through those machines to help support the individual as said individual is on again, their own personal journey of understanding their health and accommodating that. You can't, and it's just like for politics, you can't have somebody in office that's there for the sake of being able to profit personally. Because if you're just going to do that, then run your own business. Like cut up your own t-shirts and sell those by yourself. But if you're responsible for the well-being of other people, you have to be willing to be served last. And that may even mean that you're the one who's getting all the food for everybody else, and then you don't get to eat. The people that are in the positions of power that we live under have never had that. It's always somebody's servant is coming in and making you food. Somebody's servant's coming in, or maybe it's your mom coming in and doing your laundry. Somebody's cleaning up your shit. Every time you get a legal case or a DUI or something else coming up for the police, somebody's taking care of it for you. So it's always at the mercy of somebody else. And if it's not somebody who you're paying for, it's somebody who's being exploited to do it. It's weird how everyday people who struggle under these systems are the ones who understand what it's like. I'm working all day and I don't have enough money because I'm paying bills and I have to make sure that my kids eat, but I don't get to eat. And I'm the one who has to work for this money. And it's crazy how like that perspective isn't something that wealthy people have or really even want to acknowledge, because it shows how disgusting of these systems that we live under are. And how just a little bit more wealth sacrifices infinitely more lives every single time we start pursuing that direction. Couple conclusions that I've come to, as we've probably been speaking way too long about society, and I probably should have made this a podcast episode. I apologize for that. A couple of theories that I want to have either tested, broken, or supported in this life, but really ran through the face of everybody who considers themselves a professional in the psychological field. Mind you, I am a college dropout, so I just want to remind people that, because it's for the past however many years, like 10, 20, maybe 50 years, it's been looked as a sign of, I'm better than you. I'm better than you because I went to this school. I'm better than you. You're in debt. You're broke. You work a job that you hate. You're getting beat down by your boss every day. You're in a relationship that you don't like. And you don't even know what you would do if you lost all those things. So what did that college education get you other than bragging rights that don't even work anymore? Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. First theory. I believe that BPD is undiagnosed, traumatized autism, and I think that bipolar is undiagnosed, traumatized ADHD. The reason why I believe that is because ADHD is, for lack of better terms, severe emotional dysregulation. Like it's like the light that is pointed at a cat and the cat is chasing after the light. The cat and the light are both happening inside of you. But you don't control the light. And the cat is just going and doing what it needs to. Okay? So when you try to treat these things with medication, you're trying to treat the attention deficiency. Did we ever ask, like, maybe what you're forcing this child to, or this person to focus on is just not interesting or just not connected to who they are? But because they're poor, because they're a woman, because they happen to be a student in a public school, they are forced to gargle that thing down, to just swallow it. And then it's like, okay, well, what if we tried to lean into what they're interested in, or tried to open up the capacity of possible interest to see how we can run alongside this interest and getting into flow state, rather than saying this kid is broken because they can't focus on this history that was made up 200 years ago. And because they don't want to focus it and memorize it and then regurgitate it and then do a play about it, we're going to put this kid on meds. The meds are going to turn this child into a zombie, and then we're going to wonder why this kid hates themselves at 25. We're not going to address lack of recess. We're not going to address lack of emotional support and emotional intelligence, and obviously accommodation from elders. We're not going to support any type of home issues. We're not going to support lack of healthcare. Like, it's just automatically that kid is acting up, broken. And now because teachers can't beat kids behind the ass with freaking paddles, now we have to start medicating all these kids. You have to think it's just different ways that different idiotic generations try to address things. And it doesn't make money. We're just gonna beat it into submission. Now, the crazy is, it took us an hour and a half to get to this point, which is probably the main point of this video. That's why I got to clip all this shit. But BPD is undiagnosed or traumatized autism because, and the reason why it brought me to that conclusion, make sure I still got time here. The thing that brought me to that conclusion is I read a book called I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. And in that book, I wish I could be more specific as to the reference. One of the medical professionals in there was saying that there's like an ongoing, not joke, but it's like an ongoing activity to where many psychological professionals won't even treat people with BPD because they understand BPD are, for lack of better terms, crazy. Again, we're still not addressing the severe emotional dysregulation, but instead of just emotional dysregulation and intensity, we're talking about emotional dysregulation at depth, the ability to feel emotions that other people feel, but at very, very deep intensity. Needing to control the outside world, because the inside world is so chaotic. The inside brain is so different, so all the time. And when you're also dealing with trauma on top of a chaotic autistic brain that you don't know is autistic, yes, you're going to feel insane. You're already dysregulated in here, but it's because that's the way your brain works and you're told that it's wrong. So it depresses you or it gives you anxiety. And then you go treat that. That doesn't help. And then you go and try to treat something else because now you think that you're bipolar. That doesn't help. And it's just, we don't know what it is. Then we throw a title on the wall. And then everybody runs to it because, yeah, their traits, the traits that they're experiencing or the things that they're experiencing kind of align with that thing right there. But that little thing that we just pointed on the wall, it's just to get a bunch of people to run there so we can sell them a drug. It's not, let's put all those people there and all these people here and all these people here so we can figure out who is who and what is what and how we can actually treat this. I believe a lot of, especially Black women, but women get misdiagnosed with BPD instead of autism. One, because just like we were describing here, addressing the autistic part forces the system to go people over profit. Just calling the person broken, and especially a broken that you already have decided in the medical field that you have no intention of treating because you don't know how, might be an issue. Might be an issue. Interesting perspective, and this is something that I've experienced myself, is the person that inspired this video was telling me that one of her friends is neurodivergent and said, it's weird how we're still friends because like I'm only friends with neurodivergent people. And that's usually how many of us end up finding out that we're neurodivergent or autistic. And it's just like, it's interesting to me that this being, BPD being the psychotic diagnosis, basically, the crazy person diagnosis, the issue with that is I don't have to treat you being autistic. I don't even have to acknowledge you being autistic. The only thing that I have to do is see that you are somebody who does not fit inside this cookie cutter that I've built. And then now I'm going to just, again, chisel you into the cookie cutter from all angles with absolutely no intention of treating you. But I can label you crazy, and then anything that comes on the other side of what you're doing, it's easy, it's perfect for me to say, well, it's because this, it's because this, it's because this, and then it's just finger pointing and victim blaming. But think about how many people are sitting here in the traumatized sense. They need help for the trauma. They need help for the autism. They need help for whatever other issues they're going against because of their marginalized status. Is it easier to accommodate them and then look at how their inconsistencies living in this society are actually showing us that we need to change the social systems? Or is it easier to call them individually crazy and then us keep moving on? Or maybe we throw a drug at them and they take that and then we keep moving on, right? It's amazing what we'll do for money. That's what I'm always going to say. Two more things. I mean, I'm going to get dropped out of here in like 5 minutes, so forgive me for this, but two more aspects of the conversations I want to make sure we're bringing up. The self-medicating, something that I know a lot of people don't want to have a conversation about, but we got to here because we're not going to avoid that. This is humanity. We got to be grown people if we're going to address this type of shit. A lot of people suffering through drug addictions, but not even wanting to perceive it as a drug addiction because what they're going through or what they're taking It's helping them escape, or what they feel, medicate themselves out of their brain that is chaotic and constantly at the mercy of a world that is traumatizing it but doesn't give any accommodations, or at least the proper accommodations. Personally, I made a video on my TikTok a couple weeks ago saying that I smoke a lot of weed or I happen to get addicted to things that I like if they help me escape my brain internally. That's a huge issue, because that stops me from being able to accept myself for who I am and then accommodate myself for who I really am, rather than keep acting as if I am this person I am when I'm stoned, and I'm not going to have to keep on coming back to reality and be the person that I'm running away from. Because there's only one way to escape that, and that's a decision that you can't come back from. So we might as well figure out how to accept and appreciate this thing that is inside of us, inside our brain, inside of our heart, and allow a life to appreciate that, rather than allow life to reinforce the hatred that we already feel for ourselves because we don't know ourselves. So I think a handful of people are deep in drug addiction and psychosis because it's a lot more consistent to be, you guys might not like this either, but it's a lot more consistent for somebody who has inconsistency internally to be consistently high or stoned or even drunk than it is for them to consistently be themselves, because they're constantly at the mercy of stuff that they don't even have enough time to exist fully to understand and then to acknowledge, accommodate, accept, actualize, and appreciate. How crazy is that? And when you're not in the right environment to be able to accommodate yourself, or you're in a toxic environment that's not supporting you and not helping you, you're not going to heal on your own. Final aspect of the conversation as we wrap today up. Let's be honest here. Let's be honest. The reason why we're having so many issues around autism, bro, and especially adult autism or misdiagnosed or late diagnosed, it's because you're only allowed to be autistic if you're a 6-year-old white boy who likes trains. And if you've missed the mark, if you don't like trains enough, by the time you hit 6 years old and you're a white boy, you might be a big tech oligarch by the time you're 28. And if not that, you might be a Roblox. That's not a joke. I'm sorry. That's not a joke. I'm sorry. You might be one of those dudes stinking up GameStop at 40 years old trying to pick up your little PC game. Stinking up an opening release night. Just the trajectory of a tech nerd. Trajectory of a tech nerd. But let's be honest here. The thing that I love, and especially I love researching and just studying about this concept in autism, is because autism is one of the only aspects of our humanity. It actually could be one of many, but it's one of the main aspects of our humanity that literally supersedes every bit of division that you could put on people. Women have it, black people have it, white people have it, men have it, children have it, and it never leaves you because you are. Like, it's not just, it's so much more complex than the limited belief of just man is, woman is, child is a product of that. It's like an inverse human being. It's almost, and I've equated it to some interesting things over the years, but one of the things that stuck is autism to me, it's like going into the world with your skin on inside out. I think every single autistic person can resonate with that. It's like going into the world with your skin inside out, your heart is on your sleeve, your truth is literally written on your face, and people are just like, I take advantage, I exploit, or I just reject because they're weird as fuck that they're actually being who they say they are, and they're not hiding anything because it's just like written on their face like that. Hopefully this conversation that we had here can not only be seen by some intellectual people and shared by my loving community, but hopefully it just opens the door for us to see, like, dude, Western psychology is in the dumps, and we need new generations of leaders, of intellects, of curious people of the victims to this system even, and to these systems of ignorance, to come up and really contribute to the conversation, allowing us to really figure out what this energy of autism and ADHD is, bro, so we can accept it, especially in a world where people like RFK Jr. think that they're going to go and like eradicate all autistic people because we can't play baseball or go on dates. So he's just going to inject us with some like random McDonald's drug? Like I'm tired. I'm tired of these, like, forgive me for saying this, bro. This may be racist, bro. I'm tired of these old white dudes the whole world up every single day, bro. And you look at somebody like me. You look at people that don't look like them, bro, every single day coming up with something to say. And you acting like we're stupid or crazy, bro. Like, I'm tired of that shit, bro. Been tired of that shit, bro. Some of the most intellectual people that have ever traversed this earth, bro, have carried some of the most marginalized identities that you've ever seen, bro. And their truth got stolen and taken, misrepresented by somebody who looks like an acceptable demographic. And I hope that this world where we all have access to the internet to share our truth, to share our ideas, I hope you're starting to see that a lot of the truths that actually care about humanity aren't being shared by the people who have ownership over this planet and this reality that we live in. People have to care, bro. This autism thing and this like digital warfare, psychological warfare, digital psychosis era that we're living in will not be survived unless people care about people and care about themselves more than they care about submitting our whole entire salvation to technology and the people that own said technology. We have to give it back to each other. We have to give it back to the earth, bro. And hopefully this whole resurgence of people thinking that they're autistic, but really probably recognizing that they are, hopefully that allows us to really start to decentralize these systems of authority so people can take care of people again. People can be taken care of by the world again, and we can start sharing that as much as we possibly can. Because there's no other world we're going to go live on. There's no Mars. There's no other world for us to live on, bro, other than this one. So why the fuck is it so hard for us to exist on this one? Like, where else are you going to go? The only people who even perceive going anywhere else are billionaires after they blow this place up. Almost connects us back to that Mars conversation that we were having last episode. Whatever. Hopefully this did a lot for you guys, because this just took my whole life out of me. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I hope you didn't sleep all through this class session, because I'm mad at you. I'm going to report you to the principal's office if you don't like kicking it with us. I mean, I let you smoke in the back here. Come on, like, what are you tripping about? Other than that, it's been a great episode. Check out the rest of our board if I've been standing in front of it the whole time and you want to take a screenshot. Other than that, damn. I can't wait to see a bunch more of you guys being mad autistic in like 18 months. Because it's going to take a lot longer for this journey to really go on, since a lot of the beginning of the journey is you being like, there's no way I'm autistic. There's no way, because like so much of the reinforced shame or the indoctrinated shame you've been taught around being a different person. And then you have that time where you're like, holy fuck, like I am. And then you lose all your friends. And then after that, you're like, well, really, it's cool that I am this. And then you start to meet other people who are like that and they're accepting themselves in their neurodivergence. And you're like, wait a second. These are the only fucking people I even wanted to be around in the beginning. And then you realize, wait a second. I need other autistic people who are in communities and other neurodivergent people who are in neurotypical communities full of shame and hatred. I need them to find out what it's like to live with us, bro. To kick it with us. To be appreciated and accommodated for who you are. And then we start to change the world, not because we're just changing the world and forcing everybody to submit to it, but because we're changing each other's lives and changing each other's lives to change each other's lives to change the world that we all live on. Hopefully it gives a lot more of us a reason to keep going with this shit. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me your time and your attention. If you think I'm cute, I want to have sex. So catch me on the Instagram. Other than that, rock on. Oh wait, did it wrong.
Gay.